Hey everybody, this is Brendan with Business for Chummies. In this video, we're going to be looking at how you can use Excel in your job interview. And so I've been through various job interviews in my career, and several times I've had to sit down in front of a computer and answer some basic Excel challenges that were specific to the business. And I think there is some value there. It really depends on your business and um, really how intensely you expect the person to be using it and Excel as a tool from their day for their day-to-day activities. So if you expect them to be in Excel every day, you're working in complex worksheets and using formulas, then of course it makes sense that you're testing them right up front to make sure that you have someone with the skill set that you need, and your business isn't going to suffer. You're not going to have to do a lot of training and onboarding for that new user. Um, but if you're not, if the person just is using Excel once in a while, then you may want to just test for some of the most basic abilities in Excel. But in this example, we're going to be testing for somewhat kind of a medium, a low to medium skill set, and it gives you an idea that the person is aware of how to use Excel and what they're using it for. So my workbook here, this is something that you might sit the person down in front of a computer. You would show them this workbook. You'd show them the data set here on the first worksheet. And then you would present to them another worksheet that has a set of questions in it. And so what we're going to be looking at is why you would create questions in a specific way, maybe some of the formulas that you would be testing for. And then of course you want to have an answer sheet that's available only to you so that you can very quickly grade the answers that you're getting from the candidates. So on the answer sheet here, I just have what in my opinion would be some of the core concepts that you need to test for when you're doing a job interview that requires Excel skills. Now, down below here, this is really what, in my opinion, you're really testing for. So it's not just can you use a specific function in an Excel. Really, you're looking at, does this candidate have basic analytical skills that will allow them to review the data set, comprehend what the data means at some level, and then begin to think about how this data can be compiled and presented in another way using Excel. Second, the ability to conceptualize logic. So if you have a specific business problem, which is really what these questions are, right? You're asking the person to solve a business problem or to present data related to a business problem using Excel. So do they have the ability to conceptualize a specific need from this data? And we'll see a couple examples of that. And then finally, once they have the ability to conduct an analysis on the data, they're able to conceptualize the logic that's needed to get the answer for the business problem. Do they have the Excel skills to actually implement that logic? Meaning, yes, maybe they understand what the business problem is and they can see the problem in the data, but do they know how Excel as a software tool works to implement and resolve that problem or present that data? And so in my opinion, those are really the three things that you're testing for. You're not just testing, do they know how a sum function works in Excel? So here's some examples that I think will really get you on your way and gives you a good idea of what you're going to be, what you would want to be testing for a low, medium to medium skill set. So in my opinion, you start out easy, you get them all warmed up, and you work downwards towards harder challenges. So right up front, you're going to be asking a specific question. You have an assumption in your mind or a good idea of the formula that should be used to solve that problem, and then you want to know what the right answer is. Again, the right answer is dependent on how clear your questions are. I'm sure if you really dove into my questions, there's plenty of room for interpretation in some of these, and some of them might get picked apart if you spent too much time. But that's where you want to tell the candidate, take a look at these questions. If you don't understand any of these questions, feel free to come and tap me on the shoulder or knock on my door and make sure you're clear on what these questions mean. Or you can spend the time to very clearly indicate what these questions are. But I think it's best to really just present them with this worksheet, give them the questions, and let them go on their own to see if they get to the answer you're expecting. So this first question here is really, you're looking at how can this person, well, does this person know how to just do simple addition and summing in Excel? So the first question is, what is the total profit for all years? Now it's a little different than just loading up one column of numbers, right? They need to know two things. They need to know profit, where is that profit stored, and they need to know for all years. And that may be irrelevant, but there is a factor there that they need to be aware of. So what is the profit, total profit for all years? And really what you're challenging the person to do is to do some basic data entry skills, right? They need to be able to find the column that has profit. Here it is, column M, and for all years. And I would say, okay, there's this column at the end here that has all years. Um, and are they using this in their formula even though they don't have to? Are they using the date column as their reference and ignoring the fact that there's a very clear indicator of a year here? And so the answer sheet, I would expect the person to just sum up essentially the profit column for the entire worksheet, which is summing up everything in that column M. And that'll give you your answer down here at the bottom. Next, you want to take this a step further and say, okay, you know what the profit is. You've identified how to identify the profit in the worksheet. Now, what is the total profit for just the year of 2014? And I would expect them to use the sum if formula. And what that's going to do is it's going to sum that same data in the M column, but it's only going to sum if the year is 2014. Now, what you might get on your answer sheet is what I have here, is where the user has pre-selected a set of data that is based on visually looking at the years here for 2014. It starts on row 177 and essentially goes to the bottom of 700. And so the issue with that is they're not really putting together a sum if formula. They've used a sum formula. Now that number's right because they're only summing the values that pertain to those specific rows. But if your data is not sorted by year, let's say it's sorted by segment, for example, and you've got 2014 and 2013 intermixed across the column, then your worksheet or your answer no longer works. Um, so you're really looking for, are they using a little bit more complicated formula versus just looking at the data, how it stands now? Do they understand that um, that Excel uses filters and hides and shows, and that their answer needs to accommodate for that? So here, rather than using the sum formula, I would expect them to use the sum if formula. They're summing this column, they're checking in this column here if the value is 2014, and they want to sum the range of column M. And so this number should always be right. Here, this number should always be right, 13,015, because what this is doing instead is, irrespective of how the data is sorted, it's always looking row by row, and it's going and saying, is this year 2014? If not, go to the next one, go to the next one. And when it finds 2014, it's taking that value from the profit column and it's adding it, and then it's doing it again and again and again and again till it gets through the entire data sheet. So it doesn't matter how you sort it, 13 million, 15,000. No matter how you sort this, that answer is always going to stay because that's the correct formula to use. So you're taking it a step further. You're saying, can you sum, but also can you put in an additional criteria there in your sum. Next, I would expect everyone who does anything with Excel to understand how to use the new XLOOKUP function. And this is something very specific, right? So a lot of times this is more dynamic where you're taking the value from a specific cell, like a product number or maybe even a text string, and you're using that to go and look up data in the system. So in this example, we're asking the person, return the profit from column M if the ID in column A is 42. So we're looking for column M for essentially ID 42. So let's just sort here on the ID column. Scroll up to 42, and we'll see column M is $12,501. That's the profit for that specific sale. And in my answer, what the user could do is simply say that cell equals M43. But again, the number would be right until you begin to start filtering and changing the organization of the data worksheet. So really, you're looking at them doing an XLOOKUP. And if you want them to use this, you can be specific. You can in the question say, using the XLOOKUP function, return the profit. But in my opinion, you're really testing, does this person think a little bit more deeply rather than just giving you the right answer? So here you would use the XLOOKUP function. You'd say find in the first column 42, and then essentially give me find the value 42 from column A, and then return the value from column M, and then display display an error message if there was no value there. Next, I would always expect someone to know how to do counts. So a very simple one, return the total number of sales where the product sold was Paseo. So this is counting every row where the value in column D was Paseo. A nice simple formula there, essentially count if the row in column D is Paseo. And finally, probably the most complicated of them is the ability to think through how you can use multiple formulas and functions in a nested format to get more complex scenarios. And this is really where you're testing, does this person know Excel? Are they honed in on how Excel works as a tool and how to use some of the syntax that's required for Excel? So in this question, the most complex of the set, if the total profit for 2014 was less than 15 million, display a text value in the cell. So the first thing we need to do is I would need to know what is the profit for 2014, right? We did that up here. And then was that number less than 15 million? That's our second challenge. And then the third challenge is, if so, return this specific text message in the cell, which we can see over to the right. And so really what you're checking is, does this person know how to use multiple nested Excel functions to get the right answer? And in this example, you would use the if. You would find out the value of the profit in 2014. You would see if that profit is less than 15 million. If it is, you would return a specific text string, and if it's not, you would return another text string saying it's greater than 15 million. So in my opinion, these are great tools. You obviously can come up with examples that are specific to your business, but in my opinion, these are some of the key formulas that are needed and good examples of formulas that really test the breadth and understanding of a candidate when they're on a job interview testing for Excel skills. All right, that's all we have for this time. Don't forget to follow me and subscribe to the channel for other great videos, and we'll see you next time.